Hello. Hi, Jessica. We're going to go ahead and get started with panel 2. There are pieces of paper and pencils on the chairs. If you have questions during the panel, you can write your question down, and Anne-Marie, who is in the red shirt at the back, waving, will come around and collect those and pass them on to me during the Q&A time. Just hold it up. So to introduce today's panel are two 9th graders, Inea and Kita, and I'll hand the mic to them. Go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Panel 2, Let the Land Speak, Human-Scale Technologies of the Future. In this panel, we will address the following questions. Do we need palm pilots, pitchforks, or both? How will Quaker simplicity inform Olney's way forward? And now our panelists.
Bryan Smith is the Capitina Creek Watershed Coordinator. Today's panel is about human choices in technology. How can we at Olney make wiser choices in relation to the environment? Keri Willever is here to visit us from Warren Wilson College, a school not unlike our own. Warren Wilson's goal is to achieve the triad: service, community, and academics. How can Olney learn from this model? How is it the same or different from what we already do?
David and Elsie Kline, members of the Amish community and editors of Farming Magazine, own and live on their own farm in Holmes County. The Quaker tenets of simplicity and stewardship are shared by David and Elsie as they set aside modern technology to grow food in a thoughtful way. The Klines have something to teach us about how to take care of the world, 1 acre at a time. I am pleased to present Bryan Smith, and welcome to Panel 2.
Hello. Good afternoon. My name is Bryan Smith. I'm Watershed Coordinator for Capitina Creek. I work out of the Belmont County Soil and Water Conservation District office, which is located in St. Clairsville. And my responsibilities are to kind of oversee the maintenance of the physical, chemical, and biological aspects of the creek. In putting this presentation together, I was kind of inspired by the question and the format, what does the land say? So the land that we occupy here in the southern third of Belmont County was the inspiration for my presentation, and I kind of kept that in mind as I put together here the slideshow. If you hit F5, it'll send it into the... No, just F5 by itself. There you go. I don't know. It's always been F5. Or if you go to slideshow, the slideshow tab, there might be like a thing that says Start Show. Maybe. Ah, there we go. Okay. So, yeah, you gotta love technology until it doesn't work for you. But anyway, like I said before, my inspiration was the question, what does the land say? And I'm hoping to provide you with kind of a brief 10-minute presentation about what Capitina Creek says, land-wise speaking. So the first thing I want to start you off with here is kind of an overview of where we are spatially. Captina Creek, the Captina Creek drainage occupies the southern third, roughly, of Belmont County and very extreme northern part of Monroe County. To the north of the Captina watershed is the McMahon Creek watershed, which empties at Blair, Ohio, and to the west is the Leatherwood watershed, and to the south is Sunfish Creek, which drains most of northern Monroe County. So the watershed itself occupies about 227 square miles of land, 12 of which are in Monroe County, and the remainder are in Belmont County. So there are four main urbanized areas, if you will, within the watershed. These are Barnesville, Bethesda, Powhatan Point, and Shadyside. The creek itself is approximately 35 miles in length from west to east, and it starts at the headwaters out here near the burg of Boston, and then empties at the mouth at Powhatan Point. So it's not by any means the largest watershed in the state of Ohio, creek-wise, but it does cover a fairly significant amount of land. Okay, so what kind of land are we dealing with here? This isn't traditional farmland by any sense. There's a fair amount of relief in the watershed, especially in terms of topography. So this is an image. It's actually a false color infrared image showing the difference in elevation from west to east across the watershed, and in each one of the townships for each county are labeled. So what we see here at the areas in white here represent the ridge tops, and then we can see the valleys as the darker color. So this is part of what's called the National Elevation Data Set. And basically what they do is they take satellites, and the satellites take infrared images of the ground, and then they can color code those images, and it gives you a really good representation of the topography. If you want to talk more specific about topography, we can go in from a different vantage point and talk contours. So this is an image from downstream Captina that's fairly close to Powhatan Point from York Township. And we can see here that each one of these lines represents an increase or decrease in 10 feet of vertical elevation. So in parts of the watershed, there's a fair amount of relief going from the valley floors all the way up to the ridge tops. And in fact, there's over 700 feet of elevation change from the highest points on the ridge tops of the Captina watershed all the way down to Powhatan Point, which I believe the river elevation there is somewhere around 625 feet on average. So we go between 1,400 and 625 feet. So there's a fair amount of relief there over a relatively short distance. Where do we live in the watershed? Well, as you would probably imagine, the majority of the population is distributed between the four somewhat urbanized areas: Barnesville, Bethesda, Shadyside, and Powhatan. And then there are the smaller burgs in between, like Somerton, Wilson, and others. But by and large, the majority of the population is clustered around these areas. And each one of these dots represents a structure within the watershed itself, and the majority of them are clustered, like I've said, around the urban areas. So what are the statistics in terms of population breakdown? Well, based on the prior map, which is derived from county 911 records, approximately 17,678 individuals are in the Captina Creek watershed area. 16,800 reside in Belmont County, and a little over 800 in Monroe County. So we can see a breakdown of the populations by age. And the interesting thing is that less than 10% of our population in Belmont County is under the age of 10. So there really aren't a lot of, there's really not a lot of youth in the county, which is why our population trend is decreasing. So this is, again, this is census data, as was the previous slide. And this is a projection of how the county's population is expected to behave over the next 10 or so years. Right now our county population is about 68,000, and it's projected to gradually decrease by and large because there aren't that many youth within the county. Surface resource use, how are we using the land? You'll see this is a national land cover data set here, and what we have is basically an image that shows you how the land is, how the resources of the land appear from space, and it's a false color image. And basically the green areas are forested areas, and the yellow areas are kind of hayfield type areas, cleared land that has grass growing on it, basically grasses. And then these darker brown areas are kind of like secondary growth fields and larger crops like say corn, for example. So we can see here that based on this, their primary land use is 65% of the watershed is forested. Agriculture accounts for less than 22% of our land usage in the watershed, with hay being the primary agricultural product within the watershed. And it's interesting, only 6% of the watershed is urbanized. So we're definitely in a rural area here that's mostly forested. How are the forested tracts laid out? Well, this image represents in the Captina, the main stem Captina Creek, the larger forested tracts that are present. And the majority of the forest lies in the east end of the watershed, where the western end is more of the cleared kind of like hayfield pasture land that we have. How else are we using the land? Well, this is a depiction of all the current oil and gas lease locations that are within the watershed itself, and there are a bunch of them. And they're primarily situated along a line from just west, almost like Jerusalem and Monroe County, going up through Armstrong Mills and then continuing on up towards Bel Air. So there is a fair amount of oil and gas production in the county, and that's only projected to increase with the discovery of the Marcellus and Utica shale formations that lie under our watershed. I don't have maps for Utica shale, and this is the only Marcellus shale map that I've come across so far. But we can see that eastern Ohio is definitely covered by the Marcellus shale formation. And in certain areas, the production, if you look at these what are called isopacks here, they indicate the relative depth of the Marcellus formation. And it ranges anywhere from 0 to all the way up to 250 to 300 feet. So luckily we're in an area here that is represented on this map but between 50 and 100 feet depth. So the Marcellus shale is here, it is producing, but it's not as high as, say, central Pennsylvania, where the depths of the isopacks are upwards of 250 feet. Potentially high-quality vernal pool locations. For those of us that don't know, a vernal pool is a small body of water that fills up with water in the springtime, usually late winter when the ground thaws and snow melts. That fills these pools up, and these pools are then utilized by certain animals like reptiles, amphibians, other macroinvertebrates, and they become a valuable resource within the woodland habitat that we have here in the watershed. This is from an EPA document showing the best locations throughout the state for vernal pools to be. And if we locate ourselves here in Belmont County, right down here in the southern third, we have some prime habitat here for vernal pools. And actually there's a fair amount of vernal pool habitat within the Captina Creek watershed that's not identified on this map. This is kind of a generalization. So what they do is they base this on geospatial information like soil type, habitat, and so forth, and they compile these statistics together and then come up with the best land for these vernal pool locations. Who resides or lives in the vernal pools? Well, like I said, they're mainly utilized by reptiles, amphibians, and macroinvertebrates, like, for example, the mountain chorus frog, who we see here, and then the spotted salamander, which the only population of